there's like a curse on this family. There's a
Mm.
whole Wikipedia page called Kennedy Curse. And I thought it was, 5, 6 people that got shot, died in a plane crash. It's like 1,000 people who like had really, really, really tragic things happen to them.
Holy hell. Hello and welcome to this episode of The Special Relationship. I am Rachel Richardson. I am British, and this is Nicole James, and she is American.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. I am surviving. How are you doing?
I'm very good. I have to ask you about the situation in America. How are things? Are you concerned that you may be attacked? What do you think about the strike on Iran? What do you think about the whole situation in the world? That's a very big question for you.
It's so funny. I feel like every episode you ask me that question and I just start laughing. And each week the laugh gets like deeper and more ominous.
Mm-hmm.
Things are bad, as usual, as I always say. How are things? They're bad. They're probably really bad now. We're just illegally launching attacks into other countries. This consensus, I guess, consult your own algorithm. But, Trump was duped by Israel to go do their bidding. And now we're just sitting around watching this happen on our phones as usual, as we just have been doing for the last few years. Israel doing what they were doing in the last few years. But, it fucking sucks ass as usual. Trump's a fucking idiot surrounded by goddamn idiots. We don't know what's going to stop this guy. I think there was a lot of hope core going around, certainly in my group chats, about the rash on Trump's neck, hoping that it's a flesh-eating disease that will eat his whole head off. I don't know if you saw that, but
I have not seen this.
You haven't seen the rash. It was a very big deal. I'll send you a picture.
Hang on, but describe it. Red and speckly, or like a funny color?
It's red and like scaly, like right where like a vampire would bite you, basically. And so people made the meme, of Stephen Miller with vampire fangs, like right next to Trump.
I missed this
whatever.
entirely. Okay.
Yeah, well, we're ill here, so we're hanging on any shred of hope that we can find, and that was one of them. But yeah, things are bad, and I know everything America does ripples out into the rest of the world, so I know things are not feeling great over there either.
Yes, things aren't great here. One thing I would say, though, and it's a question to you, is I don't think, fearful of retaliation because we haven't really waded in that strong. We're doing some defensive stuff, and actually, it's a bit of a contentious how we've positioned ourselves in all of this. But are people in America like scared that this might come back to bite them on the homeland?
It's hard not to think that. I'm trying to separate how I feel versus like the average American. I do think the average American, according to polls, does not want this. I think it's something like 70% of Americans do not want anything to do with this. I think Trump supporters, those that are left, feel betrayed because he was banging his drum for a very long time about these endless wars in the Middle East and America's intervention, et cetera, et cetera. Hilarious to me, they think that anything that comes out of that man's mouth holds any weight, but fine. If that's the thing that they were hanging their hat on, fine. Yeah, I think people are scared. I know my friends are scared, but they're pretty left-leaning, informed people. I don't know what the average person thinks. It just feels like we're at a point where, especially after the last few years, watching what was going on in that region, I don't know how long you get away with meddling and funding these operations without someone getting really, really, really mad at you and telling you how mad they are at you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, another great decision by a great administration.
So, interestingly, we haven't supported America as sort of full-throatedly as we have in the past. And this has caused these huge fractures. And actually, this is number one news story here in Britain, that our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is getting criticized for not basically doing everything that Trump asked of him. So rewind back to before the strikes hit. The Americans wanted to use some of our air bases to launch the attack. And his position was, this might not be legal and we're not sure about what the outcome of this looks like and you don't appear to have a plan. He said it much more eloquently than that, but like that was basically what he said. And so therefore, we're not going to let you use these bases. Then when Iran started attacking other British allies and British citizens, actually, who were in Dubai,
Right.
Britain has now changed its posture. They're like, okay, you can use all these air bases, but they're not necessarily getting like very involved in like active missions. And it's led Trump to really slag off Keir Starmer. Like he's really gone for it, said he's no Churchill, like really questioned his leadership and his authority. And I can imagine that Americans don't care about this, but it really is a huge, huge story here, to the point that there's headlines everywhere, which is ironic given the title of this podcast, that it's the end of the special relationship, that essentially this harmonious, let's hold hands and skip through the world as we start wars, that relationship is over. And what I'm finding really interesting is that there's loads of people here who are criticizing him, being like, I can't believe he's not doing what Trump wants, as if like we should just not have our own opinions, that we should just do what Trump wants. That to me just seems like deeply unpatriotic. You can like disagree with Starmer's stance, but this idea that we should just do what Trump wants to do just seems to me to be crazy. Like tying ourselves to another country like that just seems wild. But yeah, what's happening in America on that stance? Does anyone care? Is this like a tumbleweed situation?
No, I mean, I have seen a few headlines about this. I haven't seen, well, I also try not to pay attention to what Donald Trump says, but I haven't seen that he is slagging off Starmer. Who is criticizing Starmer for this?
Generally people on the right. So they don't like him anyway.
Are there a lot
of
those people?
Yeah, there are quite a few actually, and they're very loud.
Yeah, they always are.
The media here is incredibly right-leaning, so the press is essentially against him, which is obviously really tricky because they're all so loud and it can have a lot of sway. Yet to me, it's like no one's getting into the nitty-gritty of whether he's right. They're just using it as like a cudgel, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is like politics. I totally get it. But to me, it betrays their like patriotism. Like to me, it's like, wait, you're just basically saying that we should like get on our hands and knees and just say like, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, or like another country. Like, how is that strong? To me, it's like all scrambled. They're basically suggesting he is weak for, in my opinion, kind of being strong because he's saying no. Much harder to say no than to say yes.
I mean, it's like, thank God someone's saying no, and I think it's interesting that he isn't that he is saying no in such a public way, because I think it really denotes a new maybe chapter we're heading into with this administration, also regarding the Epstein files and how Starmer has been under fire for that. So maybe I would assume that after all of that, Mendelsohn leaving, et cetera, that he doesn't want to just seem like he's getting in line with this madman who is allegedly doing all of these things with children. So I think it's good that he's standing up. And I think as an American who doesn't want this war, who so many people here don't want this war, I think we hear that and we appreciate that. And we wish there were more, representatives in our own country who were standing up and doing the same thing. So I say, good on him, as you guys
I will pass
say.
that message on if I see him.
Yeah, let him know.
I will. Like, hey, Keir, my friend Nicole is like really happy with your stance, even though it's absolutely crucifying you.
900 followers on Instagram. She's really important.
Okay, should we talk about something way more fun?
Yes. Well, fun. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, I guess it is dark, but it is still fun.
It's dark, but it's still like juicy. Yeah.
Yes. So the biggest show on TV right now that everyone is talking about is Love Story. It's from Ryan Murphy. And this is going to be, it's a limited series, but they're going to kind of keep this as a franchise going where they look at famous couples and basically tell their love story. The clue is in the name. The first subjects of this are JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy. Now, I knew who Carolyn Bessette Kennedy was, but boy, do I know who she is now, because that woman is inescapable online. The number of think pieces I've read about her, I actually did write one myself, the get the look, like people are obsessed with her style. Like I'm getting emails from fashion retailers like trying to sell me white shirts because she would wear iconic white shirts. And it feels like the whole corner of the internet that I occupy that is into like fashion and celebrity is just obsessed with CBK as she's become to known. And that has been my little portal into being way more interested about the Kennedys, just wholesale. So my question to you is, Why are Americans so obsessed with the Kennedys?
It's a great question. We really are. And I think, like you've said before, sort of about the royals, that they are kind of the wallpaper to your life. In that, in a very similar way, the Kennedys are the wallpaper to at least modern American life. JFK became president in 1961, and basically ever since then, some version of a Kennedy has been in our lives, running for something, running something, marrying someone important, doing something important, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that he is the atom, at the center of the entire understanding, I think, in American culture. So I'll start there. This is not going to be super comprehensive, but the family tree is crazy. And I think when you think about how many of them there are, and then also how much tragedy and sort of romance and mystery seems to follow this family, I think that has helped kind of underline their legacy and just mystique in the country. Yeah, I think you have to understand that when JFK became president in 1961 really was, I mean, you were alive for Obama.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to James about this last night, my boyfriend, about why were the Kennedys such a big deal? Why was JFK such a big deal? He was like, imagine if there was like a whole family of Obamas and one of them became the president. That's sort of how he put it. It was like just this huge new chapter for America. This was post Civil War. It was post World War II. It was post the 50s, which was so conservative, so traditional. And the 60s were bringing in this whole new energy. And he was really seen as like the young, glamorous face that was going to lead America into this brave new world. He had this very glamorous wife, Jackie O, who wore beautiful clothes and was very put together. They were just both seen as very glamorous, and they had these Hollywood connections, the classic Marilyn scene when she sang Happy Birthday, Mr. President, and that see-through dress, and there's the alleged affair that they had together. Jackie O is the person who started the Rose Garden at the White House. Like, there was this really, just like aura, as the kids would say, about this couple. He was the youngest person ever elected president at 43 years old. And he was the first Catholic president, which was a really big deal. A lot of Catholics in the US were very excited to be voting for a Catholic Democrat. I think he won. Oh, I didn't look this up. I think he won by a pretty hefty margin. And he just really represented this like excitement going into the 60s that we were going to go in this brand new direction. When he was president, though it was only for a couple of years, he stood up to the Soviet Union. He is the one who initiated the space race and got us to the moon eventually. He advocated for civil rights, and he got us through the Cuban Missile Crisis. So he was just very, very beloved. And then, of course, the most iconic thing that can happen to someone happened to him. He got assassinated in public, which was iconic. And I think that rocked the nation in a way that we had never seen before, probably mostly because he is also sort of widely considered the first like TV president. This is at the time when most Americans have a TV in their house, or at least their neighbor has a TV in their house. And seeing this footage over and over and over again of this extremely tragic incident of this beloved president felt like a huge shock to the nation. And I think that further cemented, as I said before, his legacy, and then all of the stuff that sort of followed after that, the chaos of the 60s, the tumult of this sort of, that his death sort of kicked that off. And we've really kind of never been able to let it go. As you know, Americans don't really let anything go. And so I think there's just this kind of, forever fascination with him, his family, and kind of anyone that tentacles out from that moment in history, which is why, part of the reason why JFK Jr. was he was like, I was alive for his sort of rise, though I was very young, but I remember him being absolutely everywhere. And just the fervor around this kid who America watched, wave to his dad's coffin on television as, the parade went by. I think watching him grow up into, such a, upstanding young man, also hot as hell. Let's not
I was
forget that.
literally about to say.
Unbelievable. Yeah, like extremely hot.
The Kennedys surely wouldn't have had this chokehold on America if they weren't hot. Like,
Of course.
JFK Jr., objectively hot.
I mean, objectively extremely handsome man. So he was just, it was like just the perfect media story. And this was also, peak these magazine media. He had his own magazine called George.
New York, hot in the 90s.
New York, and then he had this, beautiful, thin white girlfriend, which everyone loves to watch, like two hot white people. And they just took over. And that was also at a different sort of media time when it was, cable was ubiquitous. It was the magazine heyday, which was like my favorite time in American history. And he just captured the nation. And then, of course, tragically, like his father, died in a plane crash and continued this story about the curse of this family. And there really is, I know we were going to get to it eventually, but there really there's a curse on this family. There's a whole Wikipedia page called Kennedy Curse. And I thought it was, 5, 6 people that got shot, died in a plane crash. It's 1,000 people who had really, really, really tragic things happen to them.
Holy hell. Okay, we do need to get into that. But can I just ask you very specifically about JFK Jr. and CBK?
Yes.
As a woman, well, I guess you would have been a teenager at the time in the 90s.
I was 10, okay? Let's not
10,
go that
fine.
far.
Sorry, don't want to add the years on. Were you obsessed with them? Or was it one of these things that you just couldn't avoid them and so therefore you just had an interest? Or where were you on the hype scale?
Yeah, so they died in 1999. So yeah, I was a teenager in the late 90s. But I feel like their hype was really sort of early to mid 90s. And I didn't have the context for them. You know what I mean? So I didn't really I got that I knew that he was JFK's son and I knew that everyone thought he was hot, but he was such a man to me at that point. I was listening to Hanson. You know what I mean? I was not that just wasn't I couldn't really see that. I was very much a teeny bopper, but all I can say is they were just ubiquitous. And of course, this was pre-social media. And so the media really fed you your narratives on a platter and you sort of had to follow it. There was no escaping these people. I think I remember him going on Oprah. Everyone was just obsessed with him. They were obsessed with her. They were obsessed with her clothes. They were obsessed with her look. All the paparazzi shots of them, they were just in magazines every single week. And I think it was always, I remember the narrative a little bit being sort of what's he going to end up doing with his life? Is he going to go into politics? Is this magazine thing, is he becoming a media mogul? What is he sort of doing? I remember some of that conversation happening about yeah, he's young and hot and has this girlfriend, but what are they doing? What are they doing for society or whatever? Because his whole family was so into politics and his uncle, RFK, the original, was a really progressive guy. And so I think there was a lot of pressure on him to, kind of live up to the Kennedy name. And then, yeah, when he died, I was fully sentient and could understand. But I just thought, damn, that's crazy. I didn't really think too much about it. And it wasn't until the years have gone by that I've been you get more context. You sort of put you string the seeds together on the chalkboard or, the bulletin board and think, oh shit, there's something going on here with this family.
I mean, there must be. So he dies in a plane crash and he's in his late 30s, I understand. And this, at the time, was this an earthquake story? Holy shit, everyone remembers where they were?
Yeah, I remember 1997, I think it was when Princess Diana died. And I remember we were at our family friend's house and I was a young teenager and I think it was at nighttime and we were watching Saturday Night Live and they had broken through and I thought it was a skit because I was wait, what? It was very similar to that. And it was yeah, I don't remember where I was, but it was a real earthquake story. Very much an earthquake story. Yeah.
Okay. So before we get deep on the curse, There's also loads of other ones, right? So I'm currently fixated on JFK Jr. and CBK, but there's Maria Shriver, there's
Yeah.
RFK Jr. Like, I'm probably missing loads. Who else is still kind of like flying the Kennedy
I mean,
flag?
the tentacles like go so far. So the Kennedys, like original JFK's parents had 9 kids, and they each sort of have their own lore. One of them was RFK, the original RFK, whose son is, of course, RFK Jr. He was running for president, and he got shot as well by, fun fact, a guy named Sirhan Sirhan. I don't know what that's about. I didn't click that link, but I was like, what? I don't know who that
Okay.
is. I really should look into that. You know, one of his brother Joseph, this sort of lends us into the curse. JFK's older brother Joseph dies in a plane crash, military plane crash, 1944. His sister Kathleen dies in a plane crash in France, 1948. Obviously, JFK assassinated in 1963. JFK's brother, RFK, who I just said, he was the presidential nominee, and people were very excited about him. And he was really progressive, really right on. It looked like he was going to be the next president. And he was then shot outside of a hotel in Los Angeles in 1968, which was sort of the perfect like cap on the chaos of the 60s, because obviously his brother, the president, gets shot at the beginning of the 60s. They're thinking the legacy is going to continue with his brother Robert. He gets shot at the end of the 60s. So crazy shit there. Obviously,
And hang on,
JFK,
RFK dies in the shooting?
RFK dies later at the hospital in that shooting.
Shit.
Yeah. And then his other brother, Edward Kennedy, aka Ted Kennedy, he was a longtime senator. And I don't know if you know about the Chappaquiddick incident. Is this familiar to you?
Vaguely. Please explain.
So I forget what year this was. I should look this up. But he was driving in Chappaquiddick with a passenger in his seat, a young woman who was a campaign worker on his campaign, and he drove into a pond and she died. He did not. So very succession coded. When Kendall, no spoilers, but when Kendall drives into the lake, very succession coded. So the passenger dies, and people think this was his mistress because she was like a young campaign staffer. So that's a very, very, very short, list of some of the Kennedy curse. But truly, if anyone is just like on the toilet wasting time, go check out the Wikipedia for the Kennedy curse, because it's crazy how many people have been affected. But to go back to your question about how many are there, there's so many more. I would say active right now, obviously, is RFK Jr., our head of Health and Human Services. His wife, Cheryl Hines, obviously was on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and everyone hates her now. Carolyn Kennedy is JFK's daughter, her
Sister
son.
of JFK Jr.
Sister of JFK Jr., her son, Jack Schlossberg, is, I believe, running for Senate.
Him.
Yes, I believe he's running for Senate in New York. Tragically, his sister just died from, I think it was brain cancer. That was just a few months ago, maybe.
I know that too. She wrote that heartbreaking story in the New Yorker.
Heartbreaking. Yeah. And I want to say, I forget what she was, some kind of researcher or something.
She was a journalist,
like
marine biology.
Journalist or something. Yeah, something like that. So yeah, Jack Schlossberg would be scared to fly with him, I think. And then, of course, there's the whole, go ahead.
Sorry, just a little second on Jack Schlossberg, right? Because the only reason I know who he is that a couple of years ago, he just decided to become this, like, I don't know, fuckboy on Instagram, and leaned into this, like,
sort of.
Yeah, like leaned into this like highly camp, like personality, and started like prancing around and dancing. And for me, as a British person, this was really fascinating, because anyone could have done that, and like they might have got a few likes and the algorithm might have liked what they did. But it was really because he was a Kennedy that these internet posts blew up. And then within months, he'd been hired by Vogue to become a special correspondent. And I was wait, if you're a Kennedy, you have to do so little to get attention, was my takeaway.
And that's correct. And I think that's a really good point, because there are a lot of Americans, I think, especially in 2026, who are like, all right, can we like sort of be done with this family? You know what I mean? No offense, but like it's exactly that. It's this whole nepotism thing. And there was a lot of that going, and I haven't watched the show, but there was a lot of that going on in the 90s with this George magazine, for example. People were like, oh, he's the son of JFK, so he can just like pop up this magazine and be successful. Like, it felt very unfair. And I think there's a lot of like nepotism conversation around this family and how they still have such like basically like an oversized influence into our politics still. I mean, I think, when RFK's cousin, Carolyn, who's Jack's mom, when she came out and sort of wrote that letter saying, don't RFK Jr. as the Health and Human Services Secretary, it really held a lot of weight. When in reality, it's like, I know your dad was JFK, but I mean, so what? You know what I mean? But they have always, I would say outsized is a good word. And so I think he was, if you're a Kennedy in any way and you get on the internet, like someone's going to give you a job, which feels, I think, like I said, really unfair to a lot of people, especially in this like anti-billionaire chapter that we're going into.
That's true. Can we just linger on that though 1 second? Because I don't know of any other example of this. Kathleen Kennedy went out of her way to tell Congress not to accept her brother into the role of, like, that makes no sense. I mean, can you imagine what happens at Christmas? Like, what happened at Tatiana's funeral? Like, what?
I mean, this is classic, and this is also why I think people are obsessed with this family, because this to me is like, I think what a lot of people online might call white nonsense. This is a lot of like white people family drama. Like, there's a lot of white nonsense going on here, and I mean that makes for great TV, first of all, and just great. People watching. I think people love to get into the gossip, the behind the scenes, the drama, and there's so many of them. And they're very vocal that it's like they just keep being a story. You know what I mean?
Person is me. And this is essentially like people who are like really into the Marvel universe, right?
Yeah.
I'm not into the Marvel universe. I don't understand. I don't know how all the characters connect. I don't know the lore. But give me a fucked up family.
Exactly.
I like white people nonsense.
Like,
yeah, I love it. Inject it into my veins.
It's just really like fun to watch.
It really is.
And I mean, look at RFK Jr. I mean, hello. He might be there even if he wasn't a Kennedy, because this administration, you basically need like, I don't know what you need, like a golden ticket of, that you get at the gas station to go join this administration. But like, he's so unqualified. But even when he was running for president, there were people, I know some of them in my family, who were like, he's a Kennedy. So it's like in his blood. There's this whole idea that these politics and, this leadership or whatever is in these people's blood simply because of the tie, obviously, back to JFK and the Kennedy name. But it doesn't just stop there. Like, there's the whole Maria Shriver Schwarzenegger wing of the party as well. So this guy named Sergeant Shriver, Maria Shriver's father, married Eunice. Anyways, they had Maria Shriver and she married Arnold Schwarzenegger. I want to say she was on the Today Show, or she was a journalist for a while. But she is also considered, just by that, I mean, I guess JFK would be her uncle. Right? Just by that association, she's considered somehow a political insider. She's, should be listened to for political opinions. And then, of course, Arnold was governor in California. And then, they have all their kids. Was it like Taylor Swift is involved in this because she was dating one of the Schwarzeneggers like a long time ago. And she's like obsessed with Cape Cod and the Kennedys anyway. So there's so many different ways that these like tributaries flow out that it just is sort of like inescapable. And I would say the closest thing Americans have to the royals, probably.
Also juicy. I love it.
It is. And they're not shy. You know what I mean? That's the thing too. I mean, some of them are, but a lot of them are like, they wear it proudly, and they're like very proud to be a Kennedy, or they at least know the kind of doors it can open for them, and they sort of use it, which in a very American way, that's, you have to use every tool available to you, so you can't really fault them. But yeah, they're just sort of everywhere. I don't know that we're getting rid of them anytime soon, to be honest.
Look, the curse sounds horrendous, right? But it does seem to me to work in their favor too, right? Just for the point 100%. We were making about RFK Jr. and Maria Shriver and Josh Schlockberg. Would any of these people be in this position if they didn't have a Kennedy name? But my question is, they're all very thirsty for like public roles, right? And politics or like fame, I guess. Are they not like rich enough to just go off and live a nice life? Like, is this a rich family?
They come from rich families. And I think by any American standard, they're rich. But I don't know that they're Jeff Bezos rich in the way where they can fuck off like that.
Old money.
Yeah, it's old money. I don't really know, to be honest. There's certainly, I think, again, when the average American hears that someone's a Kennedy, they're like, oh, they're good. They're good to go. But I think they mean they're good to like buy their groceries every week. I don't know that they're like sitting on like hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe they are. I'm not sure. But they certainly have more money than the rest of us.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel very informed. I feel very, very
Do you have
informed.
more questions about like the love story portion of it, the JFK Jr. of it all?
I mean, not really, because the thing that I was really curious about was really how it was in the 90s, right? Because this show is portraying this person that I could only really identify as Charles and Diana, right? So it's interesting that you also brought up that the Diana death has been the same thing, because it was around the same time period. It's the 90s. It's when tabloids and magazines and paparazzi culture are like feral and its victims are hunted, right? And you get that sense from the show that that was the situation with him and thus her. And then she, unlike Diana, kind of chooses to not be a public figure, even though she is a public figure, because she doesn't really give interviews or like, you know, decide to, you know, use her fame to do charity work. I mean, she might have behind the scenes, but this doesn't come across in this show anyway. And so what's interesting about all of that is he is kind of like used to it because he was born into it. And as you say, you know, some of the most tender moments of his childhood were like consumed by the whole of America. And then it's a lot of obviously getting into the dynamics of the show is her sort of coming around and adjusting to this crazy life that she signs up to just because she fell in love with this guy. And like, that's, you know, whatever Ryan Murphy's trying to do with the show, he's picked a really good couple to like dig into for the first one, because there's just so many interesting aspects to it. They were clearly in love, although he was clearly a bit of a player. She obviously is kind of this like it girl and has her own sort of fascinations around her. And then, wrap all this in a bow is just the Kennedy of it all, which just, seems like an accelerant. Like it's just this thing that makes it 100 times more. It's like, mystique, you use that word, and I think that's a really good word. It's just like extra, extra, extra because of the Kennedy part of it. And so what I was trying to fathom watching it was like, how much is this drama and how much is this actually like, oh, whoa, this in the 90s was like a massive story and everyone in America was watching. That was really kind of what I couldn't
I wouldn't
understand.
say everyone in America, but certainly, you know, the coastal elite, the people really obsessed with like, you know, pop culture, celebrity. Like he was like a huge, huge celebrity. It was like when, you know, when William and Harry got married, it was like also watching this couple come together and be like, oh my gosh, she felt like she was about to become a princess because she's marrying into, you know, this iconic American family that, you know, holds such a high bar in most, you know, American families' minds.
I mean, listen, you have described a pretty fucked up family. It's not a patch on the Windsors and the Royals. Like, did anyone go no contact?
I'm sure in this whole family tree, I'm sure someone has, but I don't have that information.
Are any of them in the Epstein files?
That's a great question. Is RFK? I don't think he's come up yet, right?
Feel like we would have heard. I haven't read
we would know
the millions and millions of documents and the Epstein files, but I think we would have heard if a Kennedy was anywhere near them.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you are totally right to say it's the Royals, but I'm also going to say that they're like a less screwed up version.
Probably. I mean, you guys are like all inbred too, but I do think some of these people are inbred. If you go back, like, I don't know, you look at some of their faces, you're like, I don't know.
Well, but how is JFK so hard? Because of Jackie?
JFK Jr. I mean, listen, I'm not about to wade into this water, but I think Gen Z's looking at Jackie O in a different lens is all I'm going to say. I don't know that they think she's that glamorous. That's some of the memes I've seen. That's all I'm going to say. But his dad was pretty hot. But I think he just got he got a really good mix, I think.
I think what I'm looking at is JFK Jr. objectively hot, RFK Jr. Although some people do actually fancy RFK Jr. It's terrifying. Like the Maha moms. Like, I think they see him as an idol.
They're drinking raw milk, so I don't think they're in their right mind.
Yeah, it's true. They might be deranged.
He's like leather colored also.
From the lack of vaccines. Also, why does he keep working out in jeans?
That is a great fucking question. And have you seen anything gayer in your life than RFK Jr. and Kid Rock together in a sauna in jeans on a bicycle? These people, it's the gayest, and I only am friends with gay men, and this is the gayest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's unbelievable. Is it not?
I completely agree with you. It's absolutely crazy. I've just never known anyone. It's like become his thing now, right? He's obviously made it his shtick, but I'm like, every time I see that man, he's working out in jeans.
You know, he has made it his shtick because I was at the gym the other day and I saw an older guy working out in jeans and I said to myself, oh, RFK style. So it's like his brand.
He started a fashion movement.
He should sell jeans for the gym.
Maybe.
He should leave this post and go grift people into buying jeans for the gym.
I was literally about to say they're all grifters. There's always long con going on with these people. So I have no doubt we are going to be able to buy workout jeans from that man sometime soon. And because he's a Kennedy, people are going to be like, yes, I need workout jeans.
On that note, I think that's a great ending note.
There you go. Listen, I'm going to leave right now and I'm going to get on Canva and I'm going to do some logos for my new brand, Workout Jeans.
RFK Jr. approved.
Exactly. Amazing. I will see you next Monday.
Sounds good.